Most men believe attraction is something you create. They believe it comes from saying the right thing, from being confident enough, from showing interest in the correct way. They think attraction is built through effort. But that belief is exactly what keeps attraction out of reach. Because attraction does not begin with what you say. It begins with what your body is communicating before words ever appear. And most men are broadcasting the same signals without realizing it. Signals that quietly kill attraction the moment it has a chance to form, not over time. Not after mistakes, immediately. One of the most destructive signals is urgency. Men move too fast. They respond too quickly. They react the moment something happens. They lean in before the moment has settled. They speak before the silence has finished doing its job. They try to lock it in before it can breathe. In their mind, this feels attentive. It feels engaged. It feels respectful. But to the nervous system of the woman across from them, it reads very differently. It reads as waiting. It reads as emotional availability without containment. It reads as a man whose internal state is being pulled by the situation instead of anchored within himself. And that creates a specific feeling in her body. Pressure. Not because you said something wrong. Because your energy is asking for a result. That does not feel exciting. It does not feel grounded. And it does not feel safe. Attraction requires stability before it ever requires chemistry. The moment a man slows down his speech, his reactions, his timing, his body sends a different signal. It says he is not chasing the moment, he is inside it. And that shift is felt instantly, even if nothing else changes. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most men don't realize how loud their timing is. When you answer instantly, you're telling her you've been waiting. When you jump in, you're telling her you're afraid the moment will disappear. When you rush to prove you're interested, you're telling her you don't trust your own value. Women may not say that out loud, but their nervous system responds as if it's true. And once her body feels pressure, desire starts to shut down. Another place most men sabotage attraction is silence. A few seconds pass, no one is talking, and discomfort creeps in. So they start filling the space. They talk more than necessary. They explain things that didn't need explanation. They joke to release tension. They add noise where none was required. In their mind, they believe they are keeping the interaction alive. But what they are actually revealing is discomfort with stillness. A man who cannot tolerate silence cannot tolerate being with himself. Silence is not awkward by default. It becomes awkward when someone is trying to escape it. A grounded man does not rush to fill space. He allows the moment to breathe. He lets tension exist without trying to fix it. And that ability to remain present without stimulation is deeply attractive. Because real attraction doesn't grow from constant entertainment. It grows from emotional safety plus tension. Safety says, I'm okay. Tension says, I'm not chasing you. Most men destroy both by doing the same thing. They scramble. Then there is the voice. This is one of the most overlooked signals men give away. When a man is uncertain, his voice lifts at the end of sentences. Even statements sound like questions. That upward inflection is subtle, but it carries weight. It asks for approval. It searches for reassurance. It says, tell me I'm doing this right. The nervous system does not analyze the words. It registers the instability underneath them. A voice that floats communicates uncertainty. A voice that lands communicates self-containment. Ending sentences with a slightly lower tone changes the entire interaction. Not because it sounds dominant. Not because it sounds alpha, but because it sounds settled. And settled energy feels safe. Then comes one of the most damaging habits men have, over-explaining. Men explain why they are busy. They explain their intentions. They explain their choices. They explain themselves to avoid being misunderstood. On the surface, this looks considerate. It looks mature. It looks emotionally intelligent. But underneath, it is fear. Every unnecessary explanation is a subtle request for approval. A quiet attempt to control how one is perceived. And here is why it kills attraction. It reveals that her opinion is the steering wheel of your identity. Men who are secure do not justify their existence. They do not need to convince others that they are good, reasonable, or worthy. They say what needs to be said and stop. The less a man explains himself, the more weight his words carry. The more space he allows, the more grounded he appears. And then there is eye contact. Most men break eye contact too quickly. They smile to soften the moment. They look away to relieve tension. But what they are really doing is escaping presence. Eye contact is not about intensity. It is about tolerance. Tolerance of being seen. Tolerance of staying in the moment. Tolerance of not rushing to make things comfortable. Holding eye contact just a moment longer, without forcing it, without staring, creates an immediate shift. It communicates comfort within yourself. Comfort remaining still. Comfort not needing to hide. And attraction responds immediately to that signal. Now if you're hearing all of this and thinking, so I just need to act slower, quieter, calmer, let's be clear, this isn't about pretending. Women aren't attracted to performance. They're attracted to coherence. Coherence means your timing, your voice, your eyes, your words, and your body are telling the same story. Most men lose attraction because they tell one story with their mouth and a different story with their nervous system. Their mouth says, I'm confident. Their timing says, I'm scared to lose you. Their jokes say, please like me. Their explanations say, don't judge me. Their body says, I need this to work. And that is the core pattern behind everything we've covered. Attraction does not increase when you add more effort. It increases when you remove urgency, noise, and self-abandonment. Most men are not unattractive. They are uncontained. They leak tension through speed. They leak insecurity through words. They leak neediness through timing. And they do it without ever realizing it. But these behaviors are only the surface. They are symptoms, not the root. Because underneath all of them is a deeper habit that feels nice, respectful, even healthy to men, but reads like weakness to her nervous system. It's the habit of chasing emotional certainty, the need to know where you stand, the need to feel secure right now, the need to turn attraction into a guaranteed outcome. And that is exactly what we're going to expose in part 2. The subtle behaviors that look like good communication, but actually destroy polarity, kill desire, and turn you into a man she feels pressure around instead of a man she feels pulled toward. If you look closely, everything we talked about in part 1 points to one core issue. Most men are not unattractive. They are uncomfortable not knowing where they stand. They want clarity. They want reassurance. They want certainty. And they chase those things in subtle ways that feel reasonable to them, but feel heavy to the nervous system of the woman they're with. One of the most common ways this shows up is through energy matching. She speaks quickly, so he speeds up. She laughs, so he amplifies his reactions. She leans forward, so he leans in harder. On the surface, it looks like chemistry, like connection, like rapport. But what's actually happening is regulation failure. He's not grounded in himself. He's calibrating his behavior based on her emotional state. And that creates a dynamic where she feels unconsciously responsible for him. Attraction doesn't grow when a man mirrors her nervousness. It grows when he stabilizes the interaction. Polarity requires difference, not sameness. A grounded man doesn't need to chase the emotional tempo of the room. He holds his own rhythm. And when he does, something interesting happens. Her nervous system relaxes. Because now there's something solid to lean against. Another silent attraction killer is validation scanning. You can see it in the eyes, in the micropauses, in the way a man adjusts himself mid-sentence. He's checking how he's landing, checking if she approves, checking if he's still in. This isn't presence, it's performance. And performance creates pressure. The moment a man starts performing, the interaction stops being relational and starts being transactional. He's not there to experience the moment. He's there to manage her perception of him. And no one feels desire towards someone who is managing them. Desire needs freedom. Freedom only exists when there's no agenda, which leads to the deepest issue of all, making attraction the goal. This is the invisible thread running through every mistake. The moment a man wants her to like him, wants the outcome, wants reassurance, his body shifts, his breathing tightens, his timing speeds up, his voice loses weight, his presence fractures. He may not feel anxious, but his nervous system is no longer neutral, and the nervous system always speaks louder than words. Attraction is not something you create by effort. It's something that emerges when pressure is removed. This is why trying to be attractive fails. The moment attraction becomes the goal, the interaction becomes a test. And tests create tension in the wrong direction. A man who needs attraction to feel okay with himself cannot generate it, because his body is asking for something instead of offering space. Here's the paradox most men resist. Attraction grows when you are genuinely okay without it. Not pretending not to care, not playing disinterest, but being internally settled even if nothing happens. That internal settlement is felt immediately. It shows up in timing, in silence, in eye contact, in speech, in stillness. It shows up as a lack of urgency. Urgency is the enemy of desire. Urgency says, I need this to go somewhere. Calm says, I'm already okay. Women respond to calm because calm feels safe, and safety is the prerequisite for desire. Another behavior that quietly kills attraction is emotional caretaking. Men who pride themselves on being understanding, supportive, always available. They listen deeply. They validate constantly. They adapt endlessly. And again, it feels like the right thing to do. But here's what it communicates underneath. I will abandon my center to maintain connection, and that erodes polarity. Attraction needs a man who can stay rooted while being open, not one who dissolves himself to keep things smooth. Being kind is attractive. Being accommodating at the cost of self-containment is not. There's a difference between emotional availability and emotional leakage. Availability says, I'm here. Leakage says, I need this to work. Women don't pull away because men aren't nice enough. They pull away because the interaction starts to feel heavy. Heavy means responsibility. Heavy means pressure. Heavy means emotional labor they didn't ask for. Desire cannot survive where obligation exists. The men who are most attractive aren't doing more. They're carrying less. Less need. Less urgency. Less self-monitoring. They aren't trying to be impressive. They aren't trying to be chosen. They're simply present, grounded, and self-contained. And that self-containment creates space. Space for curiosity. Space for desire. Space for attraction to grow naturally. This is why the advice most men get fails them. Be more confident. Show more interest. Communicate better. None of that matters if your nervous system is asking for permission. Attraction doesn't respond to effort. It responds to state. A regulated nervous system is attractive. An unregulated one is not. And regulation doesn't come from techniques. It comes from being okay with uncertainty. Being okay not knowing where you stand. Being okay without reassurance. Being okay without an outcome. When you can stay grounded in that space, everything else falls into place naturally. Your timing slows. Your voice settles. Your eyes stay. Your words carry weight. Not because you're trying, but because you're no longer leaking neediness. And that is the real shift. Attraction isn't built, it's allowed. It emerges in the absence of pressure. The moment you stop chasing certainty, stop chasing validation, stop chasing attraction to feel whole, you become the kind of man attraction moves toward on its own. Not because you did something clever, but because your body finally stopped asking for something it didn't need.